Donald Tucker tightened the screws on his battle-scarred pulse rifle. Wishing it was an Andromedan's neck, he was wringing instead. Another insectoid alien was about to send him on a one-way death trip. Not fucking likely. He glanced at the faded tattoo on his bicep. KTF. It stood for Kill Them First, the motto of his old platoon. Ymir, the Andromedan commander, scuttled into Donald's cramped quarters on the Zeta Prime space station. His chitinous exoskeleton clicked as he moved, eyes glittering with disdain. Tucker, we have located a behemoth, one of our genetically engineered super predators from the war. It's running amok on a frontier world. You will stop it. Donald snorted. I've seen the intel on those freaks. They've already slaughtered your bug-faced retrieval teams. Why the hell should I clean up your mess? Ymir's mandibles twitched. Because you humans boast of tenacity and resourcefulness. Time to prove it. Capture the beast alive for study, and you'll be rewarded. Fail, and our fragile peace ends. Donald chambered a plasma cartridge into his rifle. Same old shit. Humans always had to bail out the aliens, even after they'd tried to exterminate them. Well, fuck that. This time, he wasn't just going to complete the mission. He was going to rub Ymir's face in it. He met the Andromedan's gaze, not blinking. I'll drag that thing back in chains, and when I do, you'll grovel on your fucking thorax and thank me. Ymir's laughter sounded like clacking pincers as he left. Donald allowed himself a tight smile. Capturing a behemoth was insane. Impossible. A suicide mission. In other words, just another day for Sergeant Donald K. Tucker, a human. Donald's boots hit the dusty ground of Novo Prime with a thud. The air was thick and heavy, pressing down on him like a physical weight. Towering, gnarled trees loomed overhead, their branches twisting into a dense canopy that blocked out the sun. It was a far cry from the sterile corridors of Zeta Prime, but Donald was used to hostile environments. He checked his gear with practiced efficiency. Pulse rifle charged and ready, survival kit stocked with essentials, restraints heavy duty, designed to hold creatures far stronger than any human. He was as prepared as he could be, but a flicker of unease still twisted in his gut. Behemoths were in a class of their own. A deafening roar shattered the eerie stillness of the forest, so powerful that Donald felt it in his bones. Adrenaline surged through his veins, his heart pounding with anticipation rather than fear. He grinned. This was what he lived for. His wrist-mounted tracker beeped, a signal locking onto the behemoth's location. Donald set off into the undergrowth, his movements swift and silent. As he navigated the alien terrain, his mind drifted to past hunts. He remembered the Rippers, their razor claws shredding through armor like paper, the Juggernauts, their hides impervious to all but the heaviest weaponry, the Wraiths, their venom capable of killing in seconds. Each had tested him to his limits, but he'd always come out on top. The behemoth, though, this was new territory. The trees thinned abruptly, opening into a clearing, and there at its center stood the behemoth. It was a colossus of muscle and armored plates, standing well over 30 feet tall. Claws like scythes gleamed in the dim light, but it was the eyes that caught Donald's attention, burning with a malevolent intelligence that spoke of something far more than a mere beast. The behemoth's roar filled the clearing louder than before. There was a mocking edge to it, almost like laughter. It knew what Donald was here to do, and it was amused. Donald unslung his rifle, finger poised on the trigger. He had one shot at this, one chance to take the beast down before it closed the distance and reduced him to bloody shreds. He took a deep breath, steadying himself, and activated the rifle's neural disruptor. The behemoth charged, each footfall shaking the earth. Donald fired, the disruptor pulse lancing towards the beast's skull. It struck true, but to Donald's horror, the behemoth barely slowed. It shook its head, shrugging off the effects of the weapon like they were nothing. Donald hurled himself to the side, narrowly avoiding the behemoth as it barreled past. Its claws sliced through the air where he'd been standing a heartbeat before. He rolled to his feet, pulse rifle at the ready, but a cold certainty was settling in his gut. This fight was going to be different. This fight was going to push him beyond anything he'd ever faced, and as the behemoth turned, its eyes locking onto him once more. Donald wasn't entirely sure he'd walk away from it. Donald's pulse rifle clattered to the dirt as he sprinted, the behemoth's thunderous footfalls close behind. He had seconds, maybe less, before those scythe-like claws found his flesh. His gaze locked onto an ancient tree at the clearing's edge, its sprawling branches his only hope. Donald leapt, hands outstretched, just as the behemoth lunged. His fingers caught a low-hanging branch, and he swung himself up, the creature's jaws snapping shut on empty air. The behemoth slammed into the tree trunk, the impact shaking leaves loose from the canopy. Donald clambered higher, his heart pounding, as the beast shook its head, momentarily dazed. From his perch, Donald scanned the clearing, mind racing. His weapons were useless, and he couldn't fight the behemoth head-on, but maybe, just maybe, he could trap it. His eyes fell on a large hollow log nearby. A plan formed, desperate and dangerous. Donald reached into his survival kit, pulling out a coil of high-tensile wire. His fingers worked quickly, fashioning the wire into a makeshift snare. He lowered himself from the tree, every muscle tense, watching as the behemoth recovered. Donald set the snare by the hollow log, then grabbed a hefty rock. He hurled it with all his strength, striking the behemoth square on the snout. The creature roared, enraged, and charged. Donald dived into the log, bracing himself against the rotting wood. The behemoth followed, its massive head and shoulders wedging into the opening. It thrashed, trying to reach him, but the log held. Donald triggered the snare. The wire looped around the behemoth's neck, tightening as it struggled. The beast roared again, this time in frustration and pain, as it tried to pull free. But the more it fought, the more entangled it became. Cautiously, Donald emerged from the log. He approached the immobilized behemoth, pulse racing, expecting it to break free at any moment. But as he drew closer, he saw something in its eyes that made him pause. Beneath the rage and the fury, there was fear. The realization hit Donald like a physical blow. This creature, this living weapon, it was just as much a victim as he was, a pawn in a war it never chose. Slowly, hardly daring to breathe, Donald reached out. He placed his hand on the behemoth's snout, feeling the creature flinch beneath his touch. "Easy now, big fella," he murmured, his voice low and soothing. "I'm not here to hurt you. We're both just soldiers, aren't we? Both just trying to survive." The behemoth let out a long, mournful grumble. It sounded almost human. Donald felt a lump form in his throat, an unexpected swell of empathy. They stayed like that for a long moment, man and beast, united by an understanding that transcended species. With careful, deliberate motions, Donald loosened the snare's coils from around the behemoth's neck. The wire slackened, falling away as the creature pulled itself free from the hollow log with a grunt. It rose to its full, imposing height, its shadow engulfing Donald. He tensed, pulse quickening, but the behemoth made no aggressive moves. It simply regarded him, head cocked slightly to one side, eyes glinting with a mix of curiosity and caution. Donald reached slowly into his survival kit, never breaking eye contact with the beast. His fingers closed around a ration pack, and he withdrew it, tearing open the sealed pouch. The behemoth's nostrils flared, catching the scent of the protein bar as Donald held it out, an offering. For a long, tense moment, neither moved. Then, with a delicacy belying its size, the behemoth leaned forward, its massive jaws opening. Donald held his breath, not daring to twitch as its teeth, each as long as his forearm, closed around the bar, barely a hair's breadth from his skin. As the creature chewed, Donald's gaze wandered over its form, taking in the tapestry of scars crisscrossing its hide. Some were old, long-heeled, while others were raw and fresh. Each told a story of the hardships the behemoth had endured, the battles it had fought. In that moment, a realization crystallized in Donald's mind. To truly complete his mission, mere capture wouldn't suffice. He needed to gain the beast's trust. The hours crawled by as Donald worked to bridge the gap between them. He shared his rations freely, murmuring in low, soothing tones, even as his own stomach grumbled. He spoke of his own struggles, his own scars, both physical and mental, and slowly Hesitantly he reached out, his fingertips brushing against the behemoth's armored plating, tracing the intricate patterns carved into its surface. At first, the creature flinched away from his touch, but as the day wore on it began to lean into his hand, rumbling softly. The wariness in its eyes gradually softened, replaced by something akin to acceptance, perhaps even trust. As the sun dipped low on the horizon, painting Novo Prime's sky in shades of crimson and gold, Donald knew the time had come to make a choice. His hand drifted to his communicator, ready to signal Ymir for extraction. But he hesitated, finger hovering over the button. He thought of the cruelty the behemoth had undoubtedly suffered at the Andromedan's hands, of the scars marring its body and the fear lurking in its eyes. Could he truly condemn it to more of the same? Was that the actions of a soldier or a slaver? Donald met the behemoth's gaze, seeing reflected there a glimmer of understanding, of kinship. In that instant his choice was made. Consequences be damned, he couldn't betray this creature. Not now, not after all they'd shared. He took a step back, his voice soft but clear. "Go, you're free now." The behemoth tilted its head, as if passing his words. Then, with a final gentle rumble that vibrated through Donald's chest, it turned, lumbering off into the darkening forest. Its form merged with the shadows, until even its silhouette had vanished, swallowed by the twilight. Donald watched it go, a strange sense of peace settling over him, even as he acknowledged the ramifications of his actions. He had likely sealed his fate as a traitor, but he couldn't find it in himself to regret his choice. In giving the behemoth its freedom, perhaps he had found a piece of his own. He closed his eyes, inhaling deeply of Novo Prime's air. When he opened them again, his gaze was steel, his spine straight. He was ready to face what came next, to defend his actions to Ymir, to the Andromedan hegemony, to the whole damn universe if need be. As Donald's fingers left the behemoth's snout, his communicator crackled to life, shattering the fragile peace. Commander Ymir's voice erupted from the device, thick with barely contained rage. "Tucker, what have you done? Our sensors show the behemoth is no longer contained. Explain yourself." Donald took a deep breath, his voice steady as he replied. "I let it go, Commander. It's not a monster, it's a victim. I couldn't turn it over to be tortured and experimented on again." Silence hung in the air for a moment, heavy and oppressive. Then Ymir's voice returned, dripping with venom. "You've betrayed us, Tucker. You've betrayed your own race. This act of treason will not go unpunished." Donald's grip tightened on his rifle, his jaw clenched. "I did what I believe is right, Commander. I won't apologize for that." The ground trembled beneath Donald's boots, the vibrations growing stronger with each passing second. He spun around, expecting to see the behemoth returning, but instead he found himself staring down the barrels of a dozen Andromedan plasma rifles. Commander Ymir emerged from the tree line, his insectoid face contorted with fury. "Donald Tucker, you are hereby placed under arrest for treason against the Andromedan-Human Alliance. Surrender your weapons and come quietly, or face immediate execution." Donald's heart pounded in his chest, his mind racing. He knew he stood no chance against the heavily armed squad, but he also knew he couldn't allow himself to be taken prisoner. He'd seen firsthand the brutality of Andromedan interrogation techniques. Just as he was about to make his final stand, a deafening roar echoed through the forest. The behemoth burst from the shadows, charging towards the Andromedan soldiers. Laser fire erupted from the squad, searing into the creature's hide, but the behemoth barely slowed. It barreled into the soldiers, its massive bulk scattering them like leaves in a gale. Andromedan bodies flew through the air, slamming into tree trunks with sickening crunches. In the chaos, Donald saw his chance. He sprinted towards the behemoth, leaping onto its back as it turned to face the remaining soldiers. The creature seemed to sense his intent, and together they charged forward, smashing through the Andromedan lines. Commander Ymir, his face a mask of horror and disbelief, leveled his plasma rifle at Donald. But the behemoth was faster. With a swipe of its massive claws, it decapitated the Andromedan commander. Ymir's headless body crumpled to the ground, green ichor spurting from his severed neck. As the remaining soldiers fled in terror, Donald clung to the behemoth's back, a grim smile on his face. He knew he could never go back to his old life, but he also knew he'd finally found his true purpose. Together, he and the behemoth would forge a new path, fighting against the injustice and cruelty that plagued the galaxy. As they disappeared into the forest, Donald whispered a promise to his new companion. "That's just you and me now, big fella. But I reckon that's all we'll need to make a real difference in this messed-up universe." The behemoth rumbled in agreement, its strides lengthening as it carried them deeper into the wilderness. Donald leaned into the creature's movements, his eyes scanning the horizon for any sign of pursuit. The sun dipped lower, painting the sky in shades of crimson and gold. Shadows lengthened, turning the forest into a labyrinth of darkness. But Donald felt no fear. With the behemoth by his side, he knew they could face whatever challenges lay ahead. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.